Sometimes a piece of equipment or a tool is manufactured so perfectly and formed so beautifully that it actually becomes a work of art. And we can tend to idolize these things sometimes. If you think about the posters that were on our bedroom walls when we were growing up, what did you have on there? I know a lot of people had Ferraris or different sports cars. A lot of people had things like the space shuttle, which was really an inspirational thing for so many young people. But for me, the object that I always idolized, perhaps a little bit more than I should have, were those big white lenses that were lining the perimeters of sporting events. And they were just beautiful to me, and the images they created were fantastic. So when I was getting into photography, it was always a dream of mine to own one of those big white lenses, but then the reality set in when I saw the price tag. The newest 600mm f4 from Canon is over $13,000, and I kind of realized that perhaps that's just never going to be a realistic thing for me to use. So I have been very happily using this system for all of my wildlife work. This is the OM1 and the 300mm f4 from Olympus. Together, they act like a 600mm with the background blur of an f8. I've absolutely loved this system. I've been able to travel all over the place, create really beautiful photos and videos with this setup. So recently I've kind of thought, do I even need to be thinking about those big white lenses? And the reality is I couldn't get them off of my mind. Oh, my friend Matt told me he was going to the Tetons in May, and he was renting the Canon RF 600mm f4 and asked me if I wanted to go use it. I couldn't turn that down. So in this video, we're going to be comparing that big old white lens, that 600 f4 with this 300mm f4 from Olympus to see if bigger really is better. Now let's talk about the cameras we're going to use for this comparison. I'm going to be using the OM1 from Omsystems, and Matt is going to be using the Canon R6 Mark II from Canon. Now these two cameras are fairly similar. The OM1 has a 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor. The R6 Mark II has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. They both have pre-capture shooting. They both can shoot and record video in 4K. They can both do slow-mo. They can both do really high frames per second. They both have animal detection autofocus. They both have flippy screens. Like, these are actually two very similar cameras that we can compare between a micro four thirds sensor and a full frame sensor. Now, how are we actually going to determine who the winner is? Well, in my opinion, if the Canon doesn't just blow the OM1 out of the water, I think it's a win for the little 300. Thinking about the cost difference, it's about $10,000 more for this lens. The weight difference, the size difference, the hassle of using it. If the images aren't significantly better, and by that I mean sharper, more colorful, more in focus, much better depth of field, like creamier background. If the Canon's not way better, it's a win for the OM1, because for that price and weight, it should annihilate it. Look at this lens. Isn't it beautiful? I was so excited to get my hands on it when we were up there in the Tetons. The first thing I noticed with this lens is it's significantly heavier. I was really happy I had this monopod from m.zuiko to support it, because if I had to be hand holding this thing all day, especially out here in this field where we're trying to wait for this Bear 399 to show up, it would destroy me. So yeah, m.zuiko monopod here is coming in clutch for sure. But yeah, this lens is everything I was hoping for. It is just as beautiful in person to work with as I was thinking. All these switches on the side here are super helpful for dialing in your focus presets, your different image stabilization modes, all kinds of stuff can be handled right there. This drop-in filter is actually really cool. If I wanted to shoot a lot of video with this lens, I could just put an ND filter right in here and get that proper shutter speed for any wildlife video I want to do. So for most of the comparison, I'm gonna have Matt shooting with the Canon and I'm gonna shoot with the Olympus. Matt is a really great wildlife photographer and he has a ton of experience shooting with Canon. And I'm gonna be rocking this OM1 and we're gonna do our very best to get images side by side of whatever wildlife we can find that can give us a really accurate comparison of these two lenses. Although the Tetons is one of the greatest areas on Earth for finding things like grizzlies, it was still a bit difficult. So we did do a few tests with moose and elk and bison, some of the more common, easier to find animals. Here we found a young moose still with its mother. They were hanging out in this forest and were a nice distance off the path, so we felt comfortable. Their body language showed that they were super relaxed, and I think they're just used to people being around because it is such a popular area. Now here's the comparison between the moose photos. I'll let you guys decide what you think looks best. As a surprise, right on the side of the road, right behind this fence, we see this gorgeous grizzly bear. So we knew this would be a beautiful opportunity to compare these lenses. The next day, we got word of a famous female grizzly bear and her location, so we headed that direction. While we didn't find her, we found something that might be even a little bit cooler. This has been on both Matt and I's bucket list, is finding these great gray owls. This owl had a beautiful perch here and again gave us an incredible opportunity to compare these lenses. We were getting reports of grizzly bear action up in Yellowstone, so we decided to make the 3-hour drive from Jackson around to the west entrance of Yellowstone to see what we could find, and it did not disappoint. The forecast called for snow, and we should know what that means in Yellowstone. It was dumping up there, but we still got the opportunity to get some cool photographs. Here's this bison out in a field, and it was far enough away that we thought it was another good opportunity to test out these lenses. We also found this fox that was cruising through, definitely wasn't hanging out by its den. It was on the hunt, so we only got a couple images, but you can see the comparison here. Then we decided it was time to head out, and as we were, we got rewarded with a really cool bear encounter. These 3 bears, it's a mom and some, I think, year-old siblings, were hanging out up on this hill. And while they were still really far away, we got an opportunity to get a few photographs. So what have we learned from that adventure? Well, I do know this, that if you've gotten this far in the video, it means that you should give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this, and comment down below what lens you would choose if you had your pick. But for me, I'm back here in Colorado and I came down to our local fox den, and I didn't bring that big Canon lens with me. I also don't have it in my Amazon or B&H shopping cart, which there are affiliate links down below for all the gear you've seen in this video. I've got this. I've got the Omsystems 300, and I love it. While the Canon images, some of them were a little bit better, and some of the background blur was creamier and nicer. It was a little bit better as far as noise. What I learned when I got those images back on the computer is that the quality I'm getting out of this little camera, with the mobility, portability, lightweightness of it, and with the weather sealing, which is super important, the quality of this is not that much different than the quality I was getting with the Canon setup. So for me, I'm gonna be sticking with this. I have no reason to justify the expense and the size and weight of that big Canon lens for wildlife. But I think the conclusion I've really made is that when it does come time for me to upgrade, to move on beyond this lens, I'm gonna be getting this lens, the 150-400 from Omsystems. This lens, with its built-in teleconverter, its fast 4.5 aperture, and its really, really impressive zoom range, this is the greatest wildlife lens I've ever used.